What's up, America? It's your girl bringing you some news. We are live, number one internet radio station, IntellectualRadio.com, which is an iHeart radio station. We are live in the building. You never know what Making Waves is going to be. And I'm here with someone you need to know. And we're going to get up, introduce herself. So I just want to say, share the broadcast, get ready for a great one-on-one interview. And don't go anywhere. We got one bill to pay in a moment.
Hi, my name is Tina Olivia Pay. Listen to Making Waves with Miss Darci on IR and iHeart radio station, Tuesday and Thursday.
Hey, this is Lenny Williams, and I enjoy listening to IntellectualRadio.com and Making Waves.
Are bill collectors calling you? Are you afraid to answer the phone? Afraid of lawsuits, garnishments, losing your apartment, house, or car? Then call us for your debt relief options. I'm attorney Peter Francis Geraci. Chapter 7 or 13 can relieve the debt pressure. Call us now for a free phone mini consultation or log on to infos.com. We're the law firm you trust to get you out of debt.
1-800-401-4010.
We're back. Making Waves, Miss Darci. We broadcast live every Tuesday starting at 12 p.m. Central, 1 p.m. Eastern. And today, I don't have a thank you quote today, but we're going to jump right into our one-on-one spotlight. And I'm going to have a young lady introduce herself to you all.
Well, hi, everyone. I'm Dorothy Brown. I am the current clerk of the Circuit Court of Cook County and a candidate for mayor of the city of Chicago for February 2019. I'm happy to be here with you, Dorothy. I look forward to telling you more about myself and the things that I've done as clerk of the court and what I plan to do as mayor of the city of Chicago.
Yeah, and I'm excited to have you here in the building.
Yes.
So, Dorothy, tell us a little bit about, how you got started, where you went to school, a little of your upbringing, so we can kind of know.
Dorothy, what people need to understand is that I am from very humble beginnings. My parents were educated people. As a matter of fact, my mother and father went to my elementary school at night to try to get more education. At that time, they would stop you from going to school and make you work in the fields and things like that. And so my mother was able to get to the 6th grade. My dad was able to get to the 9th grade. But they were so committed to educating their children. They had 8 children, 7 girls and 1 boy, and they wanted all of us to be able to take care of ourselves. Okay. So they sent all 8 of us to college.
Wow.
Yes, and 7 out of 8 have bachelor's degrees, 6 out of 8 have master's degrees, 2 are attorneys, 1's a PhD, and 1 is a CPA. Wow. But they also taught us the value of hard work. My mother was a cook and a domestic worker, so that meant that during the day she cooked at some cafe, and in the evening she went to her boss's house and cleaned up their houses, made sure that their children were off the school bus, fed, did their homework, and put to bed, while her 8 children took care of themselves.
Wow.
And then my dad was a laundry worker and a cotton farmer, which means that he actually washed the clothes of the other factory workers. And then in the evenings, he went to this little farm that his family had. And there he had 2 disabled siblings living there. And he helped them sustain or supplement what they were making from welfare by plowing the fields for them. He didn't plow with the tractor, he plowed behind a mule. And he then also planted a cotton field. And he took me and my 7 siblings, my aunt's 7 children, and my uncle's 5, and he made us his cotton hands. So they taught us the value of hard work. I worked in his cotton field, chopping the cotton in the spring and picking it in the fall. And then during my college years, I actually came to Chicago and worked on a factory out in Niles, Illinois, putting up parts on a paint line. See, these are the kind of things that form me as an individual, help to shape my sense of character over the years. And then while I was at Southern University, we had a situation there. Well, let me just back up. And my father and my mother's brothers, they were the civil rights leaders in my little town. And when Martin Luther King sent James Farmer to our town for us to march for the Voting Rights Act, my dad took my hand and marched me down Main Street. I remember marching down Main Street, holding his hand in the Civil Rights March for the Voting Rights Act. Yes. And then when I went off to Southern University, that same sense of working and civil rights followed me, and we had a protest for better funding for our schools because we were funded by the Board of Regents, and so was LSU, but our funding was nothing like LSU's. So we were protesting, and there was actually a boycott of the classes. And one time the leader said, you know what, we're going to march to the state capitol and talk to the Board of Regents. And we marched, and talking about shutting down expressways, we marched on the expressway back in that time. And I was right there with them. And I had on some brand new shoes that I just put on that morning, Dorothy. And by the time I got to that state capitol, and I didn't give up, I went anyway. And I thought about it when we were getting ready to walk off. I said, you know what, maybe you should go back and change shoes. But nope, I said, you know what, I'm going anyway. And Dorothy, I had blisters on the top and the bottom of my feet by the time I got to that state capitol, but I didn't give up. I made it anyway. And then after that, the governor sent the National Guard and planted them on the outside of our campus. They camped out there on the outside of our campus. Mind you, we were nonviolent. We didn't have any weapons or anything. One day, our leader said, let's go and talk to the president. Everybody needs to show up this morning. We're going to talk to the president. So I went that morning, and we went into the administration building, and we went into the president's office. And I remember seeing him walk out of that office and telling us, I'm going downtown to a meeting, and I'll be back to talk with you all. Now, we were naive enough to believe that he was coming back. He was just trying to get out of there. And you know what? We were sitting up. Now, students were all out in the hallway, but I was at the head of the line, so I was able to get in the office itself. And they came in, some of the leaders came in and said, we need some young girls to volunteer to run over to the infirmary to get something for our eyes in case they shoot tear gas. And we were like, shoot some tear gas? But I volunteered. Ran out of the back of the building. I was 19 years old. Ran out of the back of the building with 3 other girls. And by the time we got to the front of the building, the National Guard were already there. They were marching lockstep. They had a tank. I said, my God, what in the world is this? Why do they need a tank? We're unarmed students. They had their rifles. And so I told the girls, let's just run straight through across the street in front of them. We went through, and we were headed to the infirmary, and something said to me, you can't make it. So I said to the girls with me, I said, we can't make it. And now they didn't even know me. I had just met them in that lobby. And I just had that sense of I guess, grace under pressure. And to say to them, I said, we can't make it. We have to go back. And they turned around with me. When we were running back, we looked at the front of the administration building and saw that there were students that had come from around the campus to block the front entrance from the National Guard. And we ran on back to the back to go back in the way we came out. See, 2 weeks before, New Orleans, our branch in New Orleans campus, and I was in Baton Rouge. This is Southern University in Baton Rouge. This is on that HBCU Rising documentary that's on television. But anyway, 2 weeks before, those down in New Orleans, they had taken over the administration building, but those parents had actually gone up to campus because that was a commuter college. We weren't a commuter college. Those parents had gone up and blocked the National Guard from going in on those students. So here we are. We had other students that came up there to block the National Guard from coming in on us. Well, by the time we got around to the back of the building and started running in, they started shooting tear gas. They started shooting out the windows. They didn't give us a 2-week standoff like they did the kids in New Orleans. They started shooting the tear gas as soon as they got there. They got an order. Students started running out of the building, and we were running in the building. And I just said to them, I felt like we needed to get to the leaders and let them know we didn't make it to get the stuff for tear gas for our eyes. And we were getting ready around the corner, and I realized, I said, you know what, we need to just let's go in the ladies' room. We didn't turn around to run with the students. We kept going in. And I said, let's go in the ladies' room and stay in there. And we went in there and I said, everybody get a stall. And we got in the stall and locked it and got up on top of the toilets. And so then it got really quiet, eerily quiet, which meant the hallway were gone. And the tear gas started waning a little bit. And I said to them, I said, you know what? We can't stay in here either. I said, we can't stay here because if they come in here searching this building, because they will do that, and they find us in this ladies' room, there are no windows and there are no witnesses. They can do whatever they want to do to us. And that's what the vision that came to my mind. And I said, we have to get out of here. So they followed me again. They followed me out, and we went back to the back where we had gone in. And by that time, the National Guard had started circling the building, and they saw movement coming out of that back door, and they saw us, and they all trained their rifles on us. And I was just as close to them as I am to you. And they had their rifles, and I looked in at those guys, and they were all young, Dorothy. They looked like they were about our age.
But they were trained to do that.
They were nervous. These guys were shaking. They had turned red. They were shaking, and the rifles were shaking. And so I just felt like, oh my God. And one of the girls next to me, because I was the leader, and this girl next to me, she bristled and stopped. And when she did that, we all stopped. They were saying, move out, move out, move out. And I just grabbed her arm and I said, oh no, you can't risk, not with our life, not today, honey. Come on, we're going.
I said, not today, huh?
Not today. So I grabbed her and we went on. But by the time we got to the front of the building, I thought to myself, what happened to those students that were guarding us?
Right.
And I looked over and two of them were dead.
Wait.
Yes.
They had killed their own?
Two of our students. They killed two of the students that were blocking the front entrance. So when they ran the tape back, the order was to shoot tear gas canisters, and someone pulled buckshots and shot buckshots. And when they ran the tape back, students were they were shooting tear gas canisters at those students, and they were throwing them back at the National Guard. Then, of course, they were shooting the windows out. And the only way they could tell which National Guard actually killed the students was to run the film back from the television to see the proximity of how the bullet went and how the students fell. But they were only able to narrow it down to two. And by the time the federal government got to Baton Rouge, Louisiana, every rifle had been cleaned and been put back on the shelf. Every rifle had been cleaned, yes, and put back on the shelf. No one ever went to trial or anything for killing Smith and Brown.
So it was just like swept up under the rug, just like it didn't even happen.
Right. No one went to trial. Nothing ever happened.
How did that make you all? Because how many ever were you all that were in the washroom?
Okay, it was four of us.
So how did that make you all feel after that?
I started crying. We started crying, and I don't even know those girls. I didn't know them then. Don't know them now. But I started crying, and as we kept going because they were telling us to move out. Then the governor's helicopter landed in front of us, so they stopped us, and he landed. And then people started running up to me and trying to give me ice for my eyes because they thought I had tear gas. And I said, "This is not tear gas. We have two students that are dead." See, because we were front and center, because we passed, and everybody hadn't seen it. You see, because they had run. And it was so nerve-wracking. I feel nervous right now.
I know. I feel like I'm going through this experience with you right now.
I feel nervous right now.
But that had to be like emotional.
Yes.
You lived to tell about it. You lived to see what actually happens.
Oh,
people always say we're in the land of free, freedom. But I think our freedom is kind of like quarantine. It's not the real freedom that people say we had.
Right.
I don't think. I wonder if we will ever be free and safe.
That created the fighter in me.
And I believe that just hearing your whole, your teenage years to your going to school and college, that made you or shaped you into the leader that you are today. Because being in politics, I know, is not an easy journey.
It's not
so
an easy
tell
journey.
us, what do you do? What is the role of the clerk of the circuit court of
Okay,
Chicago?
so the clerk of the circuit court is the official record keeper of the court system. Every document, every exhibit, everything that people file with the court system, the clerk of the court is responsible for accepting it and making sure that it's properly filed, whether that's in paper format or electronic format. And then we collect every fine, every fee, bail bonds. We collect the bail bond money. You name it, we collect it when it comes to the court system. We collect over $300 million a year. My office, I have $100 million budget, but we collect over $300 million and we send it to various agencies throughout the state. We have 900 different agencies that we have to pay.
900?
900.
So you mean like if
Different
somebody
agencies.
foreclosed, if they have a parking ticket, if they have a boot, if it's child support, if it's divorce, all this comes through the clerk of the circuit court.
Now we don't
That's
do,
documented.
we don't do boots.
You don't do
That's
boots.
municipal related.
Okay.
Child support is the clerk of the court's responsibility, but there's a central processing unit for that.
Okay.
But if they pay a moving violation, a traffic ticket, those red light cameras, those are related to the different city governments also. But moving violations, we do that. When you are fined because of a misdemeanor, we collect that. If you have a fee that you have to pay for some reason, if you are filing a case and you have to pay that filing fee, we collect that. So we collect all of these. If you want a copy of something, you want a certification of your records, we collect all of that money and are responsible for giving everyone their fair share. So, for instance, when we get a traffic ticket, the state has to get some. The city that
So
wrote the
whatever
ticket, they get some.
municipality.
The municipality,
Okay,
they
like
get they get their share.
Okay.
Well, not
DuPage,
yeah,
but Cook County, Maywood.
Yeah, they
okay.
get their share. And we have
Okay.
to cut a check for them, and then we send the county our share. The county controls our
Now
share.
this is monthly?
This is daily. Whenever the
This
money is,
oh,
well, we
wow.
don't send the checks monthly.
Right.
You know,
okay.
and some of them we have electronic deposits
Deposit,
with
okay.
and that sort of thing. But we have an accounting department that has to keep track of the distribution. We have a cashiering system that allocates all of these funds, but then you have to do the reconciliation, that sort of thing. So it's a huge job. I enjoy.
That was my next question. How do you, just hearing you, how do you manage? What made you want to go for the clerk of the circuit court for that role or that position?
Well, I'll take you back to what made me want to run for public office in the first place.
Okay.
When I came to Chicago, and I was very risk averse, very shy person, and I had no intention of running for any office. I just intended to find different ways to help people.
Okay.
So I had gotten involved with a lot of different not-for-profit agencies, helping young people, helping senior citizens, you name it. I was doing that sort of thing, working with my professional organizations. By 1981, I was already a CPA and an MBA, because I worked on my CPA when I first got here, because I had been, when I graduated from Southern, no major accounting firm gave me a job offer, even though I graduated number 1 in the College of Business, number 1 in the Department of Accounting, number 4 in the entire university. No major accounting firm would give me a job offer because I didn't look like they wanted me to look. They couldn't hide me and make the clients think that they didn't have a black person in that office. So the guy that I tutored, they hired him. So I was very disappointed, but I made the best of it. I interviewed with Commonwealth Edison from Chicago, and a utility company, which back then the number 1 person wouldn't even give them an interview. They saved those interviews for B and C students, but I wanted a job. I was not going back to that little town. I had said in that cotton field that I was going to go to college and I was going to make something of myself. And so I was intent on doing that. So the first thing I did when I got to Chicago was to study for that CPA exam. And because I said, you know what, I'm going to pass this CPA exam and I'm going to prove to them that I'm just as good as my grades say that I am. And so I kept my head down and I went to a review class and And I was out there late at night on that bus in that cold. And I'm from Louisiana now, mind you. I'm not used to this kind of cold
Yeah,
weather.
not in
But
Chicago.
I was out there on the bus by myself, going back and forth, making sure that I was prepared for that CPA exam. And once I passed, I was able to get a job at the largest accounting firm in the world.
Good for you.
And then going on from there, I was able to, I went to grad school when I was home on maternity leave with my daughter, taking care of her for a year. And by the late 80s, I realized, Dorothy, that I was doing a lot of things, balancing a lot of balls during the day and the evening, and a child, and a family, a husband and a child. And I was doing it pretty good.
Yeah.
And I said, you know what? I have been blessed with a skill that needs to be offered to more people. And I felt that meant public office. So, but at that point, I said, but if you run for public office, you need to be an attorney. I wanted to be an attorney because I thought I would be a legislator. And if I felt that if I was going to make the law, I should know the law. Because I'm just not one to let other people tell me how to vote on something or what makes sense. I'm going to have to be able to analyze. Now, you can analyze it for me, but I need to be able to see whether or not what you're telling me makes sense. Yeah. So I took time and I went to law school for 3.5 years. I was 38 years old. My daughter was 7th grade. I was divorced and I went to law school.
That had to be like
difficult.
Yeah.
Very, very difficult. And I did it. That helped to shape me also. I guess all the things that I had gone through.
Different levels.
Helped to build to give me that tenacity and that strength and that stick-to-itness and that commitment to do it. So I went to law school, and when I finished law school, I started looking at what I was going to run for. First thing I ran for was the city treasurer of the city of Chicago back in 1999. Okay. And I almost won that race. It was 51% to 49%. And she was a 12-year incumbent. And then people were, after that, they said, oh, my goodness, we didn't vote in that race because the incumbent had some issues. And we didn't vote for you or her because we didn't know you. But we like what you did. We like the fact that you were never negative. And you had a positive campaign. You run for anything else, we're going to vote for you.
And I believe that because you're like the new person on the block.
Right.
So this is your new chapter. And they say, well, we don't know who Dorothy Brown is. Mm-hmm. But if the incumbent had 51 and you had 49, then that means people who didn't know you, now they know information about you. And now you have additional support.
Yes. So then you start out by saying what made you run for clerk of the court. So then now it's time for me to decide what else, if I was going to keep running for offices, because I always said that I wasn't running for office for the sake of running for office. I wanted to make sure that I was running for something that I was qualified for and that I was going to be able to do a good job at. So people were trying to get me to run for all kinds of things. Someone tried to get me to run for Congress against Bobby Rush. And I said there was no reason for me to run against Bobby Rush. She was doing a fine job there. They wanted me to run for water reclamation. I said, what is that?
Look, I don't even know what that is. I just heard the last word, water reclamation. Okay.
Reclaiming water.
Right.
So I said, no, that doesn't sound like something that's going to utilize my skills, because so when I did the research and they gave me the research on the clerk of the court, and I saw that it's a multi-million-dollar organization. You're like a CEO. You have your own information systems department, your own finance department, your own human resources, your own payroll, public information. And then you have this entire court operations. I have 17 different locations throughout the county. I said, now that can challenge my ability.
That's your next chapter. Hey, she's ready. Dorothy's ready.
Right. Exactly. So I said, that could challenge my ability. Plus, because of my background, I could articulate what I would be able to do to improve that operation. And so I said, that's what I should run for. And I feel like I could really do it. So I ran for it in 2000 and was able to win. At the time, even though I am a proud Democrat, I wasn't endorsed by a Democratic Party. They had someone else that was in line. They wanted you to be in line. So it was someone else's turn and it wasn't my turn. But I always felt that you should be judged by the content of your character and not by the color of your skin. And anybody should be able to, because that's what Martin Luther King said, and anybody should be able to run for public office that desires to. So I ran anyway, along with two other individuals. So it was three individuals. They were all currently elected. I'd never been elected. And at the time, people were saying, "Well, they're all white, and they'll probably split the white vote, and she'll just come up the middle." Well, guess what, Dorothy? I got 51% of the vote in the city of Chicago, and I won 21 out of the 30 suburban townships.
Right, I looked that up. I saw that.
You saw that?
I saw
yes,
that.
yes. So I would have beat either one of them.
So watching the election in the votes, how did that make you feel?
Oh
when
my
you
goodness.
knew that you had won for solely you, standing alone,
yes,
dedicated and determined,
with no money,
and it paid off. How did that make you feel?
It made me feel so humble. I was so humbled because people voted for me that didn't even know me,
but they gave you a
had
chance.
never met me, believed in me. And then in the general election, over 1 million people voted for me. And I said, wow, this is amazing to have that many people to go into a ballot box and actually pull your name.
Yeah. That was the start of your next chapter.
Yes. And I'm looking at, this is the little girl that was in that cotton field. Wow. In that
So it actually showed you how to juggle. You know, my mother always say that women created multitasking. Because as we grew up, we learned how to wash dishes. We learned how to mop. We had to learn how to do laundry. We learned how to do this. And then as you got older, you cooking dinner. You got a baby over here. You helping with homework over here. And you're doing, so you learn how. And when you said that you went to school, you had got a divorce, you was taking care of your child to school.
Yes. And had a major job. I was the general auditor heading up the audit department for Chicago Transit Authority, a multi-billion-dollar entity.
But you did.
And I had a staff.
You never gave up. See, that's the thing, is that you never gave up. And then you reran and was elected 4 times?
4 times. More. Yes.
So each time, what did that look like for you? Each time. Okay, so we talked about the first time. And so I know you were even more dedicated to run a second time.
Well, you know what? It was interesting because, you know, people always take you on that next time around, right? They think that's a fluke. They felt that, okay, they had 3, let's just put 1.
She lucked up and won.
She lucked up. So there was a judge that retired off the bench almost 1 year in advance to run against me. And he was a white judge. So they felt, and actually this reporter wrote it in one of those local newspapers. They said, well, you know, if everyone else is out of the race and he's the only one, then he could probably beat Dorothy Brown, because they were saying that I was like a person that could potentially, with my credentials, run for mayor of the city of Chicago, and that maybe he could stop me. Actually wrote that sort of thing. Yes, they did. And so I beat him.
And then the clock rolled, and that didn't happen.
That didn't happen. Beat him head to head in a Democratic primary, because normally Democrats don't have an opponent. So I beat him head to head, and then ran against another woman in the general and beat her. And so, you know, I've always had a Republican opponent, and I've always beat them. And then the third time around, finally in 2008, I didn't have an opponent. First time, I didn't have an opponent, but I helped a lot of other people. But then 2012 rolled around. Now there was a Hispanic alderman that ran against me. Now there's another try, right? So we beat him. Then, lo and behold, in 2016, they decided to try another combination, a black woman and a white guy, thinking that the 2 black women would split the black vote, I guess.
Yes.
And I beat both of them overwhelmingly.
Look at that.
In every instance, I had less money than the people that were running against me. And so the thing about it, Dorothy, is, you know, I've always been out there for the people, been out there in the community, go wherever I can, help whoever I can. You know, I do expungement summers every year, helping as many people as possible. And people appreciate that. They know that I respect them. And that's what it's all about.
And that's important. It's showing that what's for you is for you.
Yes.
And even though you got a group over here and a group over here saying you're going to split, we're going to put this person in, we're going to mess up the monotony, we're going to change this. If something is for you and your dedication and your hard work pays off, there's nothing that anybody can stop because it's for you. And nobody can really take it away from you. And that's what I try to instill in entrepreneurs and people today. They don't want to share information. They don't want to work and help each other. But at the end of the day, you can't succeed without helping some people and taking some people with you. And if someone was nice enough and kind to share information with you, then you should return the favor.
Absolutely.
Because it's a win-win for everybody, So I thank you for sharing that. Please share the broadcast. This is amazing. I'm loving this up close and personal. We'll take a pause for the cause. We're going to come back and talk about why the circuit clerk, Dorothy Brown, wants to run for the mayor of Chicago and what she would do as the mayor of Chicago. IntellectualRadio.com and iHeart Radio Station. You're tuning in to Making Waves with Ms. Darci. Share the broadcast. We'll be back in a moment. Welcome back. If you're just tuning in, we're Making Waves with Ms. Darci. We're talking to the clerk of the circuit court, Dorothy Brown, hearing her humble beginnings, how she grew up, and the instillment of dedication and determination. So please share the broadcast. But as you all know, if you don't know, you know now, Dorothy Brown is running for the mayor of Chicago.
Yes.
So what led up to you wanting to run for the mayor of Chicago?
Well, I made the decision to run this time. I'm not sure if you're aware, but I did run in 2007. Okay. And I just think that people really didn't know who I really am. Wasn't able to communicate that message. I think, and I had only been in office for 7 years, but now I've been in office for over 17 years. I have a track record now. I'm a proven leader with a proven track record. People know that I do what I say that I'm going to do. So they trust me. And I have also a great vote getting abilities. And I just, I have such a burden for what's happening in our city, what's happening with our children, the miseducation, if you will, of our children. We can do better. We need to have clean schools. We need to have safe schools. Safe when I say safe, I mean children should not be subjected to sexual assault and the like, or any kind of assault. And it needs to be, those kind of things need to be investigated immediately. We should not have individuals that, they're not even supposed to be working around students. But you don't have to have a background in it to wind up working around students. So that means that you have to protect the students at all times, because someone could go into that vein anytime. Because kids sometimes think that they're in love. Not sometimes. Most of the time they think that they're really in love, and they're not going to tell on that teacher.
Because they're building their trust.
They build that trust. 9
times out of 10, it's someone that they know or been in the company of.
See, what happens is too, Dorothy, is that like we had student teachers at my school, and I'm assuming they still have them now. But those student teachers are in college. They're only a few years older. And some of these teachers are right out of college, and they're like 21. They're only a few years older. So they actually think that they're looking at dating possibly. When I was in high school, my football coach was trying to Yes, and he was young. He was out of college,
Oh,
and one of these student teachers. So I know what this is about.
oh
They,
wow.
but I had enough sense, probably because I was raised in a very religious family, to know that it was wrong, and I didn't realize it was illegal. I did not know, and I don't think most girls
I didn't
know
either.
that it is illegal for an adult to even date,
A
a
student.
student, a child that's underage.
And I mean, they having relationships where they're producing. I
Oh my
mean,
God.
it's like, really?
Yes,
How could you think that that was morally
possibly right.
right? And
They
then the teacher, the student is young, and teacher, I'm in love with. I'm like,
they
what?
think they're in love. Yes, that's the thing. So we have to train our students too to understand that that is illegal. That it's they're being undue influenced, and that sort of thing. So clean, safe schools for our children and a high quality education. Parents shouldn't have to be fighting for a few magnet school slots. It's who you know, you know, and you can get your child a good education. No, every school should be has a magnet school curriculum,
I
so
agree.
that our children can not only be able to compete locally, and they can't even do that now effectively, but also be able to compete globally.
But why do you think? Because this is my impression. I thought that when they came up with the lottery and instituted all these new games, that part of that money was going to be for the education,
Allocate to
to
education. Yeah,
education, and then every year schools are closing.
I know.
So it's like our future generation need an education. It's a must. It's not like a want. It's a need.
It's a need. And learning is so difficult sometimes. Kids don't even mind not going to school. They're not going to complain. They're not going to complain about not having hard homework. They're not going to complain. They don't even know that they're being disadvantaged. That is, that it's is going to be handicapping them from life, until they get to the time for life and realize, oh, I can't read this. I can't compete. I can't get into a good college. I can't even get into a good high school. The other week, someone told me that the valedictorian of two elementary schools in Chicago did not even qualify to take the test for Whitney Young.
Really?
Yes, the valedictorian.
The valedictorian
The
didn't qualify?
valedictorian didn't even qualify to take the
How does that happen?
magnet school test for Whitney Young entrance exam. Which means, so what does that mean about
That-
everybody else in that school?
Right.
That's
Did
the
they just pass them
miseducation.
on? Yeah.
The miseducation of our children. Period. The curriculum is just too low. We need to have pre-K. By the time children get to the first grade, they're already behind most students. They're way, way, way behind and can never catch up. And so I'm and if you are someone that is um, uh, disabled or handicapped, you need to have that individualized education plan. I also feel like we should be meeting our students where we find them. In Chicago, a lot of our kids are suffering from PTSD. They don't know conflict resolution. They're not being taught that at home. So we have to have some of that in our schools, and we need to have mental health professionals in our schools for our children. So those are the kind of things that's what I want. I want a school that's adequately funded so teachers get paid properly.
Correct.
They don't have to be afraid that their pensions are going to be they're not going to have pension money available when they get ready to retire as well, but adequately funded. And then the leadership is there, they're properly trained, and then we are ensuring that the quality of education is sound for our
I
children.
like that. Now, what are your thoughts running for mayor and becoming mayor of Chicago when it deals with gun violence,
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
police officers, the brutality? I mean, it's not getting any better. So I know it's a tough subject to talk about, but we live here as
Mm-hmm.
constituents and we have to address it. What is your take on that? What do you think could be done?
Well, criminal justice. I think for me, I'm dealing with my criminal justice initiative from a standpoint of criminal and social justice. that there has to be an intersection of those two things. So there has to be a fairness when it comes to how you reform this system. Criminal misconduct and police misconduct are the twin problems, and that's causing the issues in the city of Chicago. So I'm looking at it from the standpoint of how do we deal with the leadership and the governance of the Chicago Police Department? How do we make sure that police officers, their supervisors, their leaders, everyone is properly trained? Like the United States Justice Department said that they need to be properly trained in their particular categories, whether that is if you're a beat officer, if you're a patrolman or whatever, that you have the training for proper use of force, that we have training facilities that see, I was over at the police academy. They just got maybe 2 years ago an up-to-date situation simulator for police officers to be trained in. Yeah.
So now, what do you think? Since we're talking about the police, so let's say because we was on a project where we had to give the exam earlier part of this year. So let's say they take the test and they pass the exam, and they go through their regular training because they have to be fit. And let's say they get the job, right?
Okay.
So let's say it's 4 or 5 years later. Do you think at some point they should be retrained based on what's going on? Because I know officers are in and they went through the regular and it's 20 years and ain't nothing.
Never gone back.
They're comfortable.
They have to be retrained. You have to be constantly fit. As an attorney, we have to get a certain number of continuing legal education hours every 2 years. As a CPA, same thing. If you want to have a license to issue audits and things like that, I have a registered accountant's license for my CPA, so I don't have to issue audit reports. If I wanted to do that, I would go back and get that. Okay. When I became clerk of the court, I changed that license. But as a CPA, we are required to have a certain, if you want to keep that license to issue audit reports and that sort of thing, you're required to have a certain number of continuing professional education classes every 2 years to get relicensed. Now, police officers have to, from what I understand, they have to be recertified for the gun.
Right, but that's a gun. But to me, that's a different to shoot the gun than understanding you saying I fear for my life or you fear for your life. You think I got something and I don't. So what happened to shooting me in my arm or my leg, but you shooting me 6, 8, 10, 12, 16 times? What happened to the taser? And then now we got the camera. Sometimes they have them on. They say they mixed function. They don't turn them on. It's one thing after another.
I know. We need to change vendors. I think that camera, I think the reason why they don't have, the audio part of the camera.
Right, correct.
I think that the audio part of the camera, I'm assuming the reason why they don't have it automatically coming on, because you have just so much conversation. Maybe there's some lawsuits concerning invasion of privacy and that sort of thing, where you're actually listening to everything that the police officer says. So I can kind of see why, but to me, it needs to be easier for them to snap. You got to hit that twice and you're running and going on. How are you going to hit that twice and leave it up to them to hit it? It's just something better needs to be done. Maybe you need to hit it twice to turn it off.
Something.
So that it does not tape your private conversations.
Or it's a button that's on there for private. And then maybe the private is like 5 minutes. I don't know. I just think that
hold a button for your private conversation
or something, because people are losing their lives.
Thank you.
For you thought they had something and they didn't. Or I'm seeing people break into your house to do they think you got something, or it's the wrong address, and they done tore up your front door. They done dismantled your entire house, and it's the wrong address. Now, I done seen that twice in the last 2 months. So it's like, what happens after that? So it's like a lot of things are happening, but I don't see a resolution or them working on a game plan to change any of this. So you're running for mayor. What is your take? What do you think is the first step to something like that?
Well, the first step is to really have a good analysis. I think the United States Justice, they did somewhat of an
A little bit,
analysis.
yeah.
It was kind of high level. They looked at the use of force and this, that, and the other. But I think there needs to be a thorough um, analysis of the police department and how it operates and who does what and when, and the level of police officers, the number of supervisors to police officers, how that organizational structure is, and when do you and who's responsible for what, when are the supervisors sent out, what is the communication mechanism, a thorough analysis of the technology that's in place and whether or not it's up to date. So you got the first thing we need to do, really have some police experts
Okay.
to do a thorough analysis of the Chicago Police Department and to determine whether or not it is properly organized to really handle a metropolitan, a city, an urban city like the city of Chicago,
Like a restructure.
To see whether or not it needs to be restructured. Then you're going to do an analysis of the personnel, all of them, everybody, all 13,000. A review of every last one of them to determine, looking at their records, seeing, and you can do a trend analysis. You can do a trend analysis of who has what. There are some key factors that you could probably look at that can sort down to those that need closer attention. So you have a basic review of all 13,000, and then you bring it down based upon your first cursory review, and you're not just basing that upon your discussions with them, but also records that you have,
Arrest.
records
Shootings,
yes,
deaths, because they
yes,
just had an
all of
officer that was in, I
No.
don't know if it was Florida or where it was, and he had an impeccable of people being arrested, held accountable, and it was like perfect. And then come to find out that he got bonuses and raises, and that they wasn't true. He would arrest somebody just to get that merit to that next level, and come to find out that almost half was unjust. Yeah. So why did it have to get to that level? Like you said in the analysis, because a person a power figure would have looked at that and said, "Wait, this don't look right. How can you not have? You got no mistakes, perfection, every arrest justified, whatever." It sounds too good to be true. And then the cameras or the footage. What do you think about them making a decision whether they should release it or not based on a riot or a march? Do you think they should hold on to footage that may indicate an officer, whether it's a hate crime or whether they were just wrong? Because they hold on, just like the Makin, they hold on for so long and then they release it, and then it's like they feel like you're covering it up because you didn't release it. Now I know the one last week they went on and released it right away, but there's only one.
And you saw all those police officers. What about the police officer that was actually talking to Mr. Augusta? What about his camera? That would kind of, even if he didn't hit the audio, maybe we could read lips or something. I don't know.
And they probably have it. We haven't seen it.
Right, exactly. I just think that, and it's the only reason why they haven't released them is COPA policy. Well, what about, sometimes you need to have something in place that usurps policy for the sake of the community.
That's why I say, like you said, analysis and maybe restructuring some of the rules and regulations because they've been in place for so long. Exactly. But that could be the change or the start.
That's what we'll find out. Yeah, that's what you would find out based upon your thorough analysis of the department and the leadership and the governance and how it operates, and comparing it to and the number of supervisors to the number of patrolmen. And what is that organizational structure? And does it make sense? The number of districts that we have, and does that make sense? The equipment that we have, the technology, all of that would have to be reviewed to determine whether or not how do we make this a 21st century police department with a 21st century mentality?
Well, those two goals I done heard you talk about it, education and bridging the gap between officers and the justice system. Those two right there are sound good to me. I mean, that's what I think is a start for the city of Chicago. So we're gonna take a pause before we close out. We want you to tell America or the city of Chicago why they should vote for Dorothy Brown. We'll be back in a moment. IntellectualRadio.com and iHeartRadio station. If you're just tuning in, we are live, up close and personal with the Circuit Court of the Clerk Dorothy Brown, and she has told us about her humble beginnings, how she was raised, her dedication and determination to where she is now, and now she is running for mayor of Chicago. And we talked about two things that are forefront for her and why you should vote for her is education, number one, and bridging the gap between the police department and the Department of Justice. So Dorothy Brown, if people are just tuning in and we're going to reshare the broadcast, tell us why we should vote for Dorothy Brown.
Well, I feel you need to vote for Dorothy Brown for real change. You need to vote for Dorothy Brown so that this city has a person that is qualified, that is concerned, and that has a heart for the people, someone that has a background of already leading some major organizations. You know, when I was running even the audit department for the Chicago Transit Authority, making sure that those billions of dollars of assets were properly controlled. I was one of only two senior managers that handled the audit of the city of Chicago's finances during the time when I was with an accounting firm, and so I got a chance to see the city's finances and how that's structured. And then as clerk of the court, running this multi-million-dollar organization, billions of court records, employees. You know, I started out with almost 2,200 employees. Now we've reduced them because of the budget constraints to about 1,400, but still having that experience. You know, this is very serious, and we need someone that has experience, that has the qualifications, and has the heart, most of all, to run this city.
Couldn't say it no better than that.
Thank you.
So, Dorothy, how, if they want to participate, support you in your journey for the mayor of Chicago, how can they get in contact with you via social media? If they can email, if they want to volunteer, how can they get in contact with you?
Okay, so if you want to volunteer, you can first of all, you can go to our website at dorothyformayor.com. And then, of course, also like us on Facebook, dorothyformayor.com. And then you can email us at info@dorothyformayor.com. So that's the way you can get in touch with us. We have our number is 773-231-0844, 773-231-0844. But just go on Facebook, like us, and also go to our webpage, and you can sign up to volunteer. You can donate there. You can get more information, whatever you'd like, on our website.
Thank you. Do you have any upcoming appearances that we need to know about, or where we can join you?
Yes, absolutely. You can join us at the Dorchester on Sunday. The Dorchester is in Dalton, Illinois, and I believe it's 1550 East 100.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you can just Google Dorchester. If I'm not giving the correct address, just Google it, and you can join us there. And that's at 5 p.m. for a stepper set. Sam Chapman.
Oh, wow.
Sam Chapman, the DJ.
That's
Yes,
it.
he
That's it.
agreed to be my
Oh,
DJ
that's going to be nice.
Sunday, and it's going to be very, very nice. We've been publicized, real cheap, real inexpensive. We have flyers. You can go on our webpage and get the flyer at the door, and even beforehand, it's $15. At the door, it's $20 if you don't have the flyer. But you know what? If you're at the door and you pull it up on your cell phone, we're going to let you come on in.
Right. Okay. We're going to get that flyer and we're going to also post it too. Dorothy, thank you so much. I know that you have a busy schedule, busy life, but I appreciate you taking time out to join us here, Making Waves with Darci on Intellectual Radio. Please come back. If there's any way we can support you or help you with your campaign, please let us know. It has been truly a pleasure. Do you want to say anything to your constituents before we close out?
I just want to say, February 26th, 2019 is the election. This is one of the most important elections that Chicago has ever had. We have an opportunity to make history, electing the first African-American woman ever in the history of Chicago to be the mayor of the city of Chicago. We have to believe that it can be done, and believe that that a woman, and an African-American woman, can run this city. We have to believe that that we can all collectively work together to lift as we climb, lift our people, and because we have to. It's been far too long. I was on the West Side. I'm almost in tears when I see our young people. I was just on the West Side with my listening tour, and I'm going to be in Inglewood at Zion Temple Baptist Church at 7010 South Union on August 7th. My listening tour is moving to Inglewood. I've been on the South Side, the near South Side. I was on the North Side, and I was on the West Side. Now I'm going to move it to Inglewood on August 7th. But I walked the community before the listening tour.
Oh, wow.
And I was over at Madison and Pulaski, hobnobbing with my friends over there. And, it pains me what's happening to some of our young men and women. And I'm committed to changing that.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing your heart. It was heartfelt. We appreciate you. And we look to support you in February for the race. And it is real. The struggle is real. If you want to see change, go to Dorothy Brown's website. Check her out. If you have questions, call her. She's open. And I'm willing to bet that she will listen to your concerns and things that you think would help shape and make a better Chicago. Dorothy Brown, again, thank you so much from me and Making Waves with Ms. Darci and IntellectualRadio.com. We appreciate you embracing our platform today. In closing, as I always say, build your own dreams or someone else will hire you to build theirs. And that could be me or Dorothy Brown. And we're out. Have a safe weekend, you guys.
Absolutely.
Thank you.